Order, order. I call James Heappey to move the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Streeter, and it's an honour to serve under your chairmanship. And I am really honoured to have secured the debate today, on the penultimate day of this Parliament, to raise Wales's bid to become the UK City of Culture in 2021. As a proud constituency MP, I've been supporting the bid from its genesis, which actually wasn't very long ago, and I will continue to support the bid because I think it has an enormous potential to change the stars of both Wales and the wider Somerset area. And before I get going, I think it's important to place on record that in the absence of a sort of large civic construct to put together this bid, it has really fallen into the hands of volunteers from in and around Wales to do so. And particular note must go to Andy Webb, who has volunteered to do this, and it is quite phenomenal the amount he has achieved in such a short space of time. Before I talk about Wales's bid specifically, I also wanted to say a few words in my capacity as the chairman of the all-party parliamentary group for the events industry, not least because I see that Nick Dubois is hoping to return to Parliament, and it may well be that they restore him to the chairmanship when he gets here. It's been an absolute pleasure to serve as the chairman of that APPG for the last 2 years. I've learnt an enormous amount about the ingenuity of the UK events industry and its role in driving both our visitor economy, but also the role it plays in showcasing British business by the calibre and expertise of the events that we put on around the world. And so too have I seen the value that events offer locally, regionally and nationally, such as the City of Culture, which is a series of events over the course of a year or so. But in Londonderry it was worth £100 million to the local economy, and in Hull has already been worth £60 million to the local economy. So you can see perhaps why Wales and the wider Somerset area, Mr. Streeter, is so keen on bringing that status to us. It would be transformative. I give way to the Honourable Member for Westminster-super-Mare.
Congratulate my honourable friend from Wales for securing this debate. It's a tremendously important issue, both for his constituency and for those of us around. He mentioned that the bid is being put together by a small dedicated band of volunteers, unlike some other larger civic construct, I think was the phrase he used. I'm sure that he has already been speaking, therefore, to Visit Somerset, Somerset Tourism as it used to be. And I suspect probably that they will have, I hope that they will have, engaged strongly in creating this, if only because the knock-on effect on, for example, close to my home, Westminster-super-Mare, and the impact on the local accommodation industry could be very, very profound. I hope that they are providing the support that he would hope.
I very much agree with my honourable friend. It is a huge opportunity, not just for Wales, but for Westminster-super-Mare as well. And Visit Somerset, along with a number of other local bodies, have been involved in supporting those volunteers in putting together the bid. Now, I think, however, that what we need to discuss today is the difference in Wales's bid, so that the Minister might perhaps satisfy himself that the bid process lends itself as keenly to rural areas as it does to urban. Because Wales's bid is not about the post-industrial regeneration that was the centrepiece for Londonderry and Hull. It's a very different opportunity down in Somerset, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Our bid draws on a rich cultural heritage that is way out of proportion for the size of our city. We are indeed England's smallest city. But our cathedral has a centuries-long tradition in music. So too does the now ruined Glastonbury Abbey that still hosts wonderful musical events during the year. We have, of course, the Glastonbury Festival just down the road. There is Arthurian legend all over Avalon and Glastonbury itself, which will be a wonderful theme to draw on throughout the City of Culture year. There are nationally, in fact, internationally significant art galleries now in Bruton. There is an opera festival in Wedmore, comedy festivals in Wales, and literature festivals, food festivals, film festivals. We have a brand new world-class concert hall in Cedars Hall. We are the location now for many, many movies and TV programmes, and so much more. And all of that goes alongside a rural agricultural life and an incredible natural history, whilst also embracing an emerging digital arts industry as well, as we tap into the success of those sectors in Bristol and Bath. The cultural offer is perhaps more developed and diverse in Wales, the smallest of the bid cities, than it is in other large cities. But let's be clear, we are much less well funded. And the bid document, quite understandably, requires certain commitments about the underpinning of a bid, which I wonder if the Minister thinks fair, given that we are trying to build a country that works for everyone, and we must now recognise that that includes developing the economies of rural areas as well as urban. And so I hope that the Minister, in the few days he has left, and accepting that his civil servants are now almost locked down on purdah, I wonder if he will satisfy himself that when smaller local authority areas are bidding for these things, that perhaps the process needs to be weighted to understand that they are not able to underwrite bids in the same way as larger metropolitan areas might be able to, but that actually there are other ways of doing it. And the great advantage of volunteers coming together, as they have in Wales, is there's a private sector engagement, which I think is very encouraging. The Heritage Lottery Fund have been very forthcoming in explaining what involvement they may have, and I hope that the Minister will look carefully at the process to make sure that if we are really aiming to create a country that works for everyone, with all regions able to compete equitably, that we make sure that the bid process doesn't disadvantage the more rural areas and those where local authorities are not able to resource these bids more fully. Of course.
For giving way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I applaud him for bringing this debate to this chamber. I believe, Mr. Chairman, that the idea behind these cities of culture is to improve economic prosperity. That's one of the big drivers. And whilst Wales, as my honourable friend said, is a glorious location with its cathedral, the location for Hot Fuzz, the film, my dad went to school there, actually, at the Wells Blue School. Is it not also very important sitting in its rural environment? And that is an area which is quite poor. And the knock-on effect from attracting the City of Culture status to Wales could reverberate out into these rural areas, right to my constituency of Taunton Deane and the rest of Somerset, really improving the productivity we so badly need to address. We are addressing it as Conservatives, but we do need to do more.
My honourable friend from Taunton is exactly right. It is so easy to assume, if you were sort of flying over our constituencies and you would see so many trees, so many fields, that you would think that all is well down below. There is a hidden deprivation within rural areas that is just as significant a challenge as the challenge that you would find in inner city areas. Arguably, in fact, the challenge in dealing with that deprivation is so much more, because rather than it all being concentrated in one area and therefore the aim of your intervention being so much more defined, in rural areas, too often, those families who are living in deprivation are on their own. They're the only family in the hamlets to live in that sort of circumstance. Or the families are scattered across a town or a larger village, and the requirement and the ability to intervene in their lives is so much more challenging. Now, I think, and I will make the argument later on, that there's a real opportunity through a City of Culture status to be able to do something that uplifts the entire area. And on that, you help you find those people, you engage those people who are deprived, who are living in deprivation in isolation, and you bring them into this and you do something that could potentially be quite transformative to their lives. Now, there's a number of obvious benefits to the City of Culture status that the Minister will be well aware of and that will be in common with all other bid cities. Clearly, the most obvious place to start is the visitor economy. Somerset's visitor economy is already growing. It has grown from 1.2 to 1.3 billion in just the last few years. And Visit Somerset have been on the front foot in looking at all sorts of different ways of marketing our county, and we've seen huge success from that. So too have the various tourism expos that have come to the county, a number of which I've had the pleasure to host. And the Minister will want to pass back, I suspect, congratulations to Visit Britain, who have brought a number of international delegations of tour operators to Somerset. I hosted a group of Spanish, Italian, Portuguese and Mexican tour operators in Glastonbury just a month or two ago, and it was great to see them being brought to the area by Visit Britain to see what we have to offer. But the reality is that despite all of that, Somerset is still too often the drive-through county on the way to the far southwest, and there is so much more that is on offer. Mr. Streeter, I know that that's music to your ears, but I am sure you won't begrudge us if we hold them up a little longer at our end of the peninsula. There is so much more that could be done in the visitor economy in our part of the southwest, and it would be great to see the City of Culture acting as a catalyst for that growth in visitor numbers. So too would it be fantastic to see City of Culture status acting as a catalyst for infrastructure improvements too. The railway lines south of Bristol are not planned for electrification, and indeed the line from Reading through to Taunton and on down into the far southwest is perhaps not being electrified as quickly as we might have hoped. Perhaps a major internationally significant tourism event like the City of Culture status along those lines might be a reason to accelerate the improvement of those lines. So too might it be a great hook for a number of airlines who have been looking at bringing in daily services to Bristol Airport, to New York, to Doha, to Istanbul. Perhaps this would be something that would be the final encouragement that they need to commit to that service, which would not just be great for Bristol and the greater Bristol area, but would be fantastic for the whole southwest peninsula, and this City of Culture status could be a real catalyst for that. And then there may well be the opportunity to use this as a catalyst for road improvements too. My honourable friends, the members for Bath and North East Somerset, have both been doing some great work on improving the route from the M4 down through Bath and into Somerset and West Wiltshire. It would be great to see that succeeding. And I've been doing work on getting some improvements on the A39 and the A361 as you come in from the M5 from Bridgwater North in order to access Mendip more quickly. What a great thing if the City of Culture status was to be the catalyst for those road improvements too. And the Minister has been doing great work on broadband and mobile phone coverage. We have improved enormously in our part of the world in recent years, but given perhaps that there might be some sort of growth on the digital arts industry that is emerging within the Somerset area, perhaps the City of Culture might also catalyse the need for that digital connectivity and see us really accelerate there too.
I wonder if my honourable friend will give me the pleasure of intervening again.
I'd be delighted.
As I am the only one.
I'd be delighted.
I feel I'm speaking up for the rest of Somerset. And perhaps the Minister might listen to this, but the South West has historically been below the productivity of the rest of the country. We're about 7%, the rest of the country about 8%. Would my honourable friend see this as a great opportunity to address that? Because the knock-on effect would be enormous right across, and if only we could get a City of Culture in the South West, which would be unusual. The money's all sort of going north, Minister. It could do so much good work if we brought it to the southwest, and it really would have a big impact on productivity.
My honourable friend is an excellent battle buddy to have in today's pursuit of the Minister. She is, in course, entirely right, and productivity is potentially one of the big gains from this, and I will come to that very shortly. Because one of the other things that I think that the City of Culture status might help us to achieve is that we are blessed in Somerset with some really outstanding schools and some really outstanding colleges. But too often we are therefore training people up and giving them an education for which they think they have no option but to move away to pursue their careers. And I wonder if the City of Culture status, in that it might attract inward investment, in that it might create a buzz about living in Somerset, in that it might come about alongside the introduction of a University of Somerset in my honourable friend's constituency, in that it might come about alongside some excellent work on the arts and delivering skills in sort of digital arts and marketing and all those sorts of things from Strode College in my own constituency. I wonder if the City of Culture status might actually have the effect of helping to rebalance in some small way Somerset's demographic as well by keeping young people in the county. And if, of course, we have managed to improve infrastructure and we've managed to create a younger workforce with the right skills that are needed by the industries that are there and the industries that are emerging, then we do achieve a significant productivity boost, as my honourable friend suggested, and that would be a fantastic legacy to see in Somerset. Not only because it would sort of change Somerset stars in terms of the way the population is skilled and the availability of workforce, but also that the availability of that newly skilled workforce would bring with it inwards investment, which would bring new companies, which would be hugely exciting. Perhaps we could see the City of Culture status as part of the legacy of Hinkley Point, which is already doing something to rebalance our region's economy. But what if having brought all of that expertise and know-how to the county, we then had follow-on industries coming behind. There was a city of culture status, helping to really enforce what a wonderful quality of life one can have when living in Somerset. It all just seems to work. The timing is right, and I hope the Minister will agree. He's got a significant opportunity here, not just for the City of Wales, but to do something for the South West as a region as a whole.
I wonder if I might intervene just one last time.
Of course.
My honourable friend is given such a catalogue that's making Somerset glow, and it's making it sound such an attractive place, which, Chairman, it is. But also, we do have the Somerset Levels very close to Wales. We have a massive wildlife offer, and we could build on that. We also, in my constituency, we have the county town of Taunton, but it could build its links with Wells. We too are trying to build our cultural offer, and similarly, we have the international Somerset County ground there now. So we could build the whole offer in Somerset, but we could focus it with spin-offs from Wells.
The Honourable Lady is contributing powerfully on behalf of our county and for her constituency. She is, of course, entirely right. This is England's smallest city cannot do this alone. This is an offer that encompasses Glastonbury, Shepton Mallet, Frome, Cheddar, Wedmore, Street, and villages all over the county, but also slightly further afield, in Taunton, in Bath, in Bristol. This is a regional opportunity which I think is hugely exciting. But the Minister so far will say, well, so what? Everybody says it's going to bring more tourism, it's going to boost productivity, and it's going to bring inwards investment. And he's not wrong. But that's where I think the bid from a small city in a rural setting becomes quite interesting. Because I would argue that the challenge of yesteryear was the regeneration of post-industrial cities. I think that the new challenge, the challenge for the next decade, is how we build more resilient communities to deal with loneliness, to deal with an ageing population, to deal with the challenges of mental health, particularly dementia amongst that ageing population. And in Somerset, we have those problems quite acutely already. We are in the vanguard of the nation when it comes to the ageing population. And I think that if we were to start to see the City of Culture as an opportunity for the arts to be something that brings communities together, that enhances the culture of volunteerism that already exists in our communities, but could become so much more, and so therefore to build networks of people that are looking out for one another. And it is the arts, it's the City of Culture status that has brought them together in the first place. I think that is hugely exciting. The Minister will, I hope, reflect that there is an economic challenge in the southwest. Although there are not the brownfield sites that you might have seen in other bid cities previously, he might reflect that the southwest as a region has been somewhere that has lagged behind in terms of inwards investment for some time, and that something like this, a flagship project of international significance, really driving the local economy, would be really exciting, and therefore would tick all of the boxes in terms of a more conventional bid. But I hope that he will also see that if for the government one of the great challenges of the next decade is going to be tackling loneliness, helping the elderly to live independently in their own homes so they don't need to be given adult social care, so they don't need to be in hospital, that actually starting to see the City of Culture status as a catalyst for developing that resilience, for building those networks of volunteers, for embracing the huge horsepower that exists within community groups and voluntary groups, and for sort of using that as sort of celebration of our community, our culture, our shared history, and using that to create a legacy of support and looking out for one another in a resilient community. I think that is hugely exciting. Mr. Streeter, you've indulged me and my colleagues from Somerset for long enough, but it has been a huge honour to stand here and pitch to you and the Minister the value of a bid for Wales to become the UK City of Culture. I know the Minister doesn't make the decision, but I hope he will go away full of enthusiasm for what we have to offer, and that we might be successful in reaching the shortlist in due course.
City of Culture. Minister to respond, Mr. Matt Hancock.
Thank you very much, Mr. Streeter, and it's a great pleasure to serve under your chairmanship in what I expect to be the final Westminster Hall debate that I'll respond to of this Parliament. And I congratulate the member for Wells on securing this debate and on so powerfully arguing for Wells' to become the UK City of Culture in 2021. You can see why the people of Wells elected him, Mr. Streeter, because he has a deep passion for his city. He makes the case, and he touched on some of the things he's been able to do in the 2 years that he's been the MP to improve the city and life for its residents. And I wish him well in his bid to gain their trust to do that in the next Parliament too. And you can see from today why such a passionate advocate is needed for the City of Wells and the surrounding areas. And of course, he made the case more broadly, including the value of becoming the City of Culture to Somerset and the South West more widely. Under the UK City of Culture programme, places can compete to hold the title once every 4 years. The prize is that title. There is no formal funding support, although there is a huge amount of support to draw in funding from all sorts of places, private and public. And the programme uses this creativity and culture to transform a place, attracting visitors and bringing communities together. And the competition was launched in January. There's 11 places that have registered their intention to bid: Sunderland, Perth, Paisley, Stoke-on-Trent, Coventry, Swansea, Herefordshire, Warrington, St David's, Portsmouth and Wells. The bids need to be received by the end of this week, so this is a very timely debate, and then they'll be assessed by the independent advisory panel whilst Parliament is dissolved, and then a shortlist will be announced after the election and the winning city announced by the end of this year. And I thought it was really striking how he described the way that a largely voluntary bid is coming together, drawing people from the community, from the private sector, of course within the council area, but led by volunteers. And I pay tribute to those who've worked on the bid so far. As the smallest city, I think there's an iconic selling point there too. When it comes to looking at Wells, we've heard today about the cultural assets that already exist in Wells. The City of Culture is all about boosting those assets that already exist, as well as adding new ones. And in Wells, in particular, this draws from an ancient tradition, the long and illustrious history, the cathedral, which has been, and the bishopric, which has been in place since 909. The Bishop of Bath and Wells, of course, has been the seat since 1245. The current bishop, Peter Hancock, no relation, but a great man. And there's a great heritage, 341 different listings, 4 of which are for the Bishop's Palace alone, as well, of course, as he mentioned, the Glastonbury Festival and Cheddar, the home of cheese. So the variety, as well as the depth of the history, is a real attribute. The area has enjoyed significant investment from both the Arts Council, who've invested almost £700,000 in 48 projects since 2010, and the Heritage Lottery Fund, who've invested almost £3.5 million over the same period. Glastonbury Festival Theatre and the Circus of Glastonbury Festival are benefiting from grants this year, and in last year the Palace Trust were awarded money for their Dragon's Lair project to help children and families engage with the Bishop's Palace. So there's been significant public investment as well as the private investment that he talked about. Now, I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that he said directly. I think that the backing of course, the backing of the steering team's vision by Visit Somerset and the support of local councils, institutions, businesses, events, artists, festivals and carnivals working together is important. There's a very strong sense of pride in the area. And I know from some of the officials who've already visited, as Wales has been a candidate city for a couple of months now, that coming together is an important part of delivering the project. But the thing that struck me most was what he said about looking at the City of Culture competition in a different way, not just to support primarily physical and economic regeneration, but also to support and strengthen communities, the resilience of communities, and the value of communities in a small city and rural setting. I thought that he put that very well, because he's right that Wells would be different as a choice from previous winners, where the focus has been on economic regeneration and social rejuvenation of an area that has had a difficult time over recent generations. Whereas Wales is about building on success, but building stronger and more resilient communities. I thought he put that over very well, and I've noted that, and I'll ensure that that is noted by the judging panel too. Of course, the value of the UK City of Culture competition, I think the evidence is that the value comes to all bidders, and just bidding brings value. It brings people together, it brings national attention, as this debate is doing, and preparing the bid can generate new ideas and create new partnerships. Bidding areas often think about the plans and develop them over time. Hull was only successful at the second attempt, but has been hugely successful this year. Indeed, the rough guide said that Hull was one of the top 10 cities in the world to visit this year, and it's had a 60 million boost to its local. It expects a 60 million boost to its local economy and more than £1 billion of investment. So that's the benefit of winning, but the benefit of it's the taking part that counts also, because the benefit of people pulling together with the goal of winning has its value. And I also want to acknowledge the support that he has from the member for Taunton Deane, who has put powerfully the wider benefits to Somerset, and also the member for Westminster, who made a powerful supportive comments, and that shows the value that is expected to the wider community, not just Wells, but actually the bid is really about Wells in Somerset. Making it, yes, of course, very briefly, yeah.
Just picking up the Minister's point about the rural connection, and I do think this is a massive selling point for the Wells bid, because we are finding, Minister, that this urban-rural divide is getting larger, and if only we could do something to link the two together better, perhaps through the arts, I think that would be a really positive move.
Well, the member for Taunton Deane is a powerful advocate for her constituency, and makes the case incredibly well for the importance of closing the urban-rural divide and making sure that that people in Taunton and across the country gain the benefits of the arts, of culture, and that technology is bringing right across rural and urban areas, and I've very much taken that on board. So I'll end, if I may, Mr. Streeter, by saying that the member for Wells is a brilliant local representative. He's a terrific advocate for Wells, and I will give him all encouragement in this bid and the bidders. There's only one thing I can't give him, and that's that which he seeks, which is victory today in his bid, along with many others in the bid. to make Wells the UK City of Culture in 2021. But what I can say is, thanks to his efforts, the bid that they're making has been brought to the attention of people right at the most senior levels, so that it will get the very best shot that it can.